I've tried to tell this story to people in my life, but every time I get close, something in their eyes changes. Curiosity first, then discomfort, then that thin layer of doubt. So I'm writing it here, under a name that isn't mine, hoping that strangers might believe me more than the people who claim to know me. My name is Alex. I'm 34, and 3 months ago, I saw my best friend for the first time in 16 years, which would have been normal enough if he hadn't been dead for 16 years. We were 15 when it happened. Me and Noah grew up in a town where nothing really happened unless you made it happen yourself. We met in kindergarten. He was the kid who ate paste on a dare. I was the kid who did his homework early and colored inside the lines. For reasons I still don't fully understand, we clicked. We did everything together. Bikes, video games, failing miserably at talking to girls, late-night horror movies his parents let us watch and mine didn't. He was the reckless one, the one who pushed fences to see if they break. I was the one who followed because watching from behind felt safer than watching from the sidelines alone. The summer we turned 15, a girl in our school went missing. Her name was Emily. She wasn't in our close circle, but everybody knew her. Her face was on every bulletin board, every lamppost, every TV in the local diner. It threw our little town into the kind of spotlight nobody wants. 3 days after she disappeared, they found her body in the woods just outside town. Everything that came after is a blur even now. Police everywhere. News vans. Our parents whispering in the kitchen when they thought we were asleep. Assemblies at school with counselors telling us it was okay to be scared. It turned out Noah had been one of the last people to see her alive. He told me this in his garage, voice cracking like he'd swallowed glass. We were just talking, he said, by the bike racks. She asked if I wanted to walk her home. I said no. I was meeting you. I remember feeling sick with guilt at that, like my existence in his schedule had altered the outcome of the universe. The police questioned him for hours. They questioned me too. Where were you? What time did he call you? Did he seem upset? Nervous? He didn't do anything, I told them. He was with me. We played Halo until midnight and then fell asleep on the floor. I lied about some of the timeline, massaging the truth to sound cleaner. I wanted to make it impossible for them to see him as anything but innocent. A week later, they told us they didn't think he was involved. 2 weeks after that, they found something in the woods. Something they wouldn't tell us about. And 3 days later, Noah disappeared. No note, no text, no woodbye. His parents called mine at 3 in the morning. I remember the sound of my mom's footsteps racing down the hall, the murmur of my dad's voice, the way the house felt suddenly hollow. They searched for him. Of course they did. The whole town did. Volunteers, dogs, helicopters, more news vans. His picture next to Emily's on every lamppost now. They didn't find a body. They found his bike in the same patch of woods where they'd found Emily. And at some point, I don't know exactly when, those two stories fused in everyone's mind into one. A dead girl, a missing boy, something bad connecting the dots. There was no trial, no confession, no evidence released to the public. But people love filling in blanks. By the time school started again, the whispers had settled into a narrative. Noah did something to Emily, and guilt made him run. Or he tried to run, and something or someone stopped him. Nobody said it outright, not to my face. But I heard it in the way teachers said his name, in the way parents looked at me, in the way kids shifted in their seats when his empty desk came into view. I defended him like it was my job. He would never do that, I said. You didn't know him like I did. But the thing about saying that sentence too many times is that, at some point, you hear the echo in your own head. Did I know him like I thought I did? It didn't matter, though. Not really. Because he was gone. And gone people don't explain themselves. Life moved on in that brutal way it does. My family moved to a different town the following year for a fresh start. I made new friends, built a new version of myself, learned not to mention the boy whose name could change the air in a room. I went to college, got a job, became one of those people who uses words like pipeline and deliverables without irony. I had relationships, some serious, some not. I lived the way people do, with small joys and constant quiet compromises. And I told myself that Noah was dead, because that was easier than imagining him somewhere out there, alone. 3 months ago, I was walking to the subway after work, thinking about nothing in particular. Emails, what to eat for dinner, whether my boss really meant it when she said good job, or if it was just automatic when I saw him. It was raining. People were hunched in coats, umbrellas bobbing like a low ceiling of black fabric. The pavement was shiny, reflecting city lights and headlights in smeared streaks. I was waiting at a crosswalk when a group of people came out of the cafe across the street, laughing at something. One of them turned his head just enough for his profile to catch the light. My brain misfired. Same jawline. Same crooked nose from when he'd broken it falling off my porch steps. Same way of holding his shoulders slightly too high, like he was always bracing for a hit. No, it couldn't be. The light changed. The crowd moved. He turned fully, saying something to the woman next to him. My heart slammed into my ribs like it was trying to break out. It was him. Older. Thinner. A faint scar along his left eyebrow. I didn't remember. But him. Noah. My body moved before my brain did. I stepped off the curb. Someone swore at me. A bike nearly clipped my hip. I didn't care. I pushed through bodies, shoulders, umbrellas, apologizing automatically, never taking my eyes off him. He and the woman started walking down the street in the opposite direction, talking, sharing an umbrella. I sped up. No, I called out. My voice sounded wrong in my own ears. Smaller. He didn't react. I called his name again, louder. He froze. His head turned, slowly, like a door creaking open on old hinges. Our eyes met. There is no word for what passed through his expression. Not recognition exactly. Not fear exactly. Something between guilt and annoyance, like a person who's tried very hard to stay off the grid being spotted by someone from their old life. For a second, neither of us moved. Then I said, because my brain had no idea what else to produce. It's me, Alex. The woman beside him looked between us, confused. Do you know him? His jaw tightened. He opened his mouth and lied. No, he said. I think you've got the wrong person. The words hit me harder than if he'd punched me. Are you kidding? I said, stepping closer. Noah, it's me. We went to school together. He cut me off sharply. You're mistaken. His voice was different, deeper, but the cadence was the same. I would have recognized it anywhere. He turned to the woman. We should go. He started walking. Something in me snapped. I grabbed his arm. He spun back around, eyes flashing. For a second, I saw something through the mask. Not the old Noah, but something raw and dangerous. Let go, he said quietly. You disappeared, I said, the words suddenly spilling out of me in a rush I'd been holding back for years. Everyone thought you were dead. They said. Alex. He said my name like it tasted bad. Let go. The woman looked alarmed now. I'm calling someone, she said, already reaching for her phone. He gently pushed her hand down without breaking eye contact with me. We're leaving, he said to her. Then, back to me in a lower voice. If you follow us, you'll regret it. That should have scared me. Maybe it did. But mostly I felt like a kid again, watching my best friend walk into the woods alone. I just want to talk, I said. That's it. 5 minutes. Explain. You owe me that much. His eyes flicked away, then back. Something softened, just for a breath. Then he said, 2 blocks down, left side. Alley next to the pharmacy. 10 minutes. And he walked away. The next 10 minutes were the longest of my life. I didn't go into the pharmacy. I didn't pace. I leaned against the damp brick wall of the alley, hands shaking, feeling like the world had started glitching. He was alive. He looked relatively healthy. He was with someone, which meant he had a life. Somewhere, somehow. The rain turned to drizzle, then stopped. A neon sign buzzed above my head. People walked past the mouth of the alley without glancing in, absorbed in their own lives. I thought about asking myself if I'd finally lost it, if grief had built a ghost so solid I could touch it. But my arm still tingled where I'd grabbed him. Flesh, muscle, bone. Footsteps sounded. He stepped into the alley, hands in the pockets of his jacket, shoulders tense. No woman now, just him. Up close, the differences were sharper. The scar, the weight loss, lines around his mouth that hadn't been there at 15. A slightly crooked front tooth I'd never seen before, probably a teenage repair gone imperfect. But the way his eyes assessed the space, checking exits without appearing to, that was new. I I said, because my brain is a genius. It fluttily. For a second, we just stared at each other. You're supposed to be dead, I said. He huffed, almost a laugh. So I've heard. Everyone thought you. I swallowed. They thought you killed Emily. Then something happened to you. That whoever hurt her got you too. His jaw flexed. Is that what you believed? Yes, I said. Then more honestly, no. Sometimes. I don't know. They never told us everything. There were gaps. People like gaps, he said. They shove whatever they fear most into them. I took a breath. So what really happened? He looked away for a moment, gazing at the wet pavement like it held answers. How much did they tell you? He asked. That they found her in the woods, I said. That you were one of the last people to see her. That you were questioned. Then they said you weren't a suspect. And then you vanished. Not vanished, he said. Removed. My skin prickled. What does that mean? He looked back at me. It means your belief that people like our parents can't do awful things is more comforting than true. That landed like a stone. Our parents. I echoed. He nodded slowly. You think they didn't know where I was all these years? I felt my stomach churn. My parents thought you were dead. Your mom did, he said. Your dad's a better liar than you think. I stared at him. My father, who'd driven us to school, told bad jokes, grounded me for lying about grades. A liar? I don't believe you, I said automatically. He shrugged. You don't have to. Where did you go? I pushed. Where have you been? Witness protection? Some kind of facility? With relatives? In prison. Does it matter? He said. Yes, I snapped. It matters to me. You were my best friend. Then you were just gone. I blamed myself for years. Wondered if I'd missed something. If I'd failed you somehow. So yeah, I'd say it matters. For the first time, he looked like the Noah I remembered. Sad. Guilty. Torn. You didn't fail me, he said quietly. You were a kid. We both were. Then who did? There was a long pause. The adults, he said finally. Like always. He glanced toward the street, then back, as if measuring how much time he had. The night Emily died, he said slowly, I walked her halfway home, like she asked. We parted at the corner of Mill and Grove. I watched her walk away. I turned back toward my place. That's what I told the police. That's what I told you. Remember? I nodded. That wasn't the whole truth, he said. I felt a cold weight drop into my gut. What do you mean? He took a breath. I went back, he said. I realized I'd forgotten my jacket at school. So I cut through the woods. I figured it'd be faster. I heard shouting. He stared over my shoulder, eyes unfocused now, seeing something else. I saw Emily, he said, with a man. I couldn't see his face clearly, but he was older. Not a kid. They were arguing. She tried to walk away. He grabbed her arm. His jaw clamped. I was 15. I didn't do anything. I just watched. I told myself it wasn't my business, that I'd misunderstood, that they knew each other. His voice dropped. Then he hit her. I swallowed, throat dry. What did you do? I asked. What any coward would do, he said. I yelled. Threw a rock. Hit him in the back. He turned. I saw his face. His eyes met mine. And so did you, he said. A weird dizziness swept over me. I wasn't there, I said. I was at home. We were on the phone. You called me around 9:30. I called you at 10, he corrected. After. After what? The second time I ran away, he said. The first time was when I ran from that clearing instead of helping her get back up. He laughed. It sounded like it hurt. You used to come to the woods with me, remember? We had that little path in the back of your yard, just past the old shed. I nodded slowly, faint images resurfacing. Branches. Dirt. The hollow where we'd pretended to camp. You met me halfway, he said. I was shaking. I told you what I saw. I told you who it was. I started. And stopped. Because suddenly my brain supplied context my mouth didn't want. I remembered running through trees, my lungs burning. I remembered Noah gripping my wrist hard enough to bruise. I remembered his voice, high and cracked. Dash, he hit her. Alex, he hit her. I remembered asking, who? And I remembered his answer. Your father. The alley spun. No, I said. No, that's not. You told me I was wrong, Noah said. You said your dad would never do that. That I must have imagined it. That the dark does weird things to faces. I saw flashes now. My father's pale face in the hallway that night. His voice too calm. The way he'd held my shoulders and said, You didn't see anything, Alex. You weren't there. Oh my God, I whispered. They called our parents the next day. Noah went on, voice dull, to tell them they wanted to ask more questions. Your dad came to my house. He talked to my parents. He smiled that same thin smile he always had. He said it'd be best if I didn't confuse the investigation with childish stories. He told me the police needed everything to be clear, Noah said. That if I said something that wasn't 100% accurate, I could ruin innocent lives. His eyes were distant. He told me I'd misremembered, that I was scared, that trauma makes you see things that aren't there. He told my parents the same thing. I don't remember this, I said. But even as I said it, pieces were sliding into place inside me like a lock turning. You were there, Alex, he insisted. You sat on my porch steps while he talked to us. You didn't say anything. You just stared at the ground. My father's voice in my ear, Dash, you keep your mouth shut about the woods. Do you understand me? My own voice, small. Dash, but Noah said, Dash, Noah is confused, he'd said. Dash, you want to help your friend? Don't repeat his stories. I slumped back against the wall. Why didn't you tell anyone later? I asked weakly. The police. A lawyer. Someone. Because your dad didn't stop there, Noah said. He took a step closer. 2 days later, he said, he came by again. Only this time, he asked to speak to me alone. He told my parents it would be man to man. I felt like I was underwater. What did he say? I forced out. He said the police would ruin my life if they thought I was involved. Noah said that once people decided a poor kid from the wrong side of town had something to do with something like this, they'd never let it go. He said my future would be gone. He said I could help and protect both our families if I just disappeared for a while. The world shrank around us. He offered to hide you, I said. In my parents, Noah said. They shipped me off to some cousin 3 states over. New name, new school, new life. They told neighbors we'd moved suddenly because of everything. They told the police they hadn't seen me. They let everyone think I'd run away. And you went along with it? I couldn't keep the accusation out of my voice. I was 15, he said, anger sparking at last. Everyone was telling me I'd ruin lives if I spoke. I'd be thrown in jail or worse. It was better this way. My parents cried and told me it was temporary. Your dad promised he'd fix things. And his voice cracked. I believed him. I pressed my hands to my face. So why come back? I asked, voice muffled. Why now? Why let me see you if you've been avoiding this town for so long? He was silent for a moment. When did your dad die? He asked. The alley felt suddenly colder. Last year, I said slowly. Heart attack. Noah nodded. Mine too. 3 months after. Different city, same problem. Dads dying with their secrets still nice and buried. I stared at him. You think my dad killed Emily? I said. He didn't respond. Do you have proof? I pushed. He looked tired. I have what I saw. I have what he did to keep that site quiet. I have what he did to me. To you. To our families. I have the way your mom looked at me like something dirty before I left. I felt sick. My mom didn't know, I said. She knew enough not to ask questions, he replied. So did mine. That's how this works. We both fell silent. A car drove by. Somewhere a horn honked. The world outside went on like 2 men in a wet alley weren't trying to resurrect a corpse made of truth. Finally, I said, why tell me now? He shrugged, a weary motion. Because when your dad died, something clicked. I realized he'd gotten exactly what he wanted, a life where he never had to answer for what he did. And I realized I'd been carrying his cover story for longer than Emily was alive. And I asked, and I got tired, he said simply. Tired of disappearing. Tired of being the story people whispered about. Tired of being the monster in the town's bedtime story when I was just the kid who ran. He looked me in the eyes. Tired of protecting the man who made me. I swallowed, the implications burning all the way down. You want me to go to the police? I said. He snorted. I'm not that naive anymore. You tell them you suddenly remember your dead dad being in the woods the night a girl died, based on a conversation with your resurrected missing friend, and see how far that gets you. He stepped closer. What I need, he said, is for you to remember for you, not for them. Anger flared in my chest. And what am I supposed to do with that, huh? Go home and stare at old photos? Ask my mom if Dad Ever came home with blood on his shirt? What good does it do anyone if it's just us knowing? He hesitated. It stops you from building your life on a lie, he said. That's more than I had for a long time. Silence again. The rain started up, lightly, speckling his jacket. Why did you pretend not to know me? I asked after a moment. On the street. He looked away. Because the woman I was with has no idea who I used to be. To her, I'm just some guy with a complicated family who moved a lot. I didn't want to shatter that in the middle of a sidewalk. Is she important? He finished. A faint smile ghosted across his face. Yeah, but she doesn't know the truth, I said. She knows some truth, he said. Not all of it. People get to choose how much of their trauma they unpack in their relationships, Alex. I flinched at the way he said my name. I waited a long time for this, he added. To see you. To see if you still had his voice in your head instead of yours. Doi? I asked. He studied me. I don't know, he said. You tell me. And that was when the real gut punch landed. Because beneath the shock and denial and outrage was a quiet, horrible relief. Relief that someone else was confirming what my brain had hidden from me for 16 years. That the man I tried to turn into a hero to survive my childhood wasn't just flawed. He was dangerous. I took a shaky breath. Do you hate me? I asked before I could stop myself. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. For what? For believing him, I said. For not remembering. For not fighting harder. I don't know. He shook his head slowly. You were a kid, he repeated. We both were. The adults made the rules. They decided whose version of the story counted. He paused. I hated you for a while. Then I realized I hated myself more. Then, I don't know. Time passed. Hate turned into something else. Exhaustion, maybe. He stepped back, hands sliding into his pockets again. I have to go, he said. Panic flared. Wait. That's it? You drop this on me and just walk away. He shrugged. What more is there to say? I wanted you to know I didn't kill her. I wanted you to know what your dad did. I wanted to see if you'd look at me like a murderer or like a victim. You pick something in between. That's about right. That's not fair, I said. You can't just. Life's not fair, he said, with a ghost of the old smirk he used to get when he beat me at video games. You of all people should know that by now. He turned. Something in me clawed at my ribs. Are you going to disappear again? I asked. He paused. Probably, he said. Habits are hard to break. I took a step forward. Noah. He glanced over his shoulder. If you ever decide you want to do something with what you remember, he said, you'll know how to find me. Ow! He smiled. Really smiled this time. And it hurt to see how much of the 15-year-old in my memory was still in there. You're the observant one, he said. You always were. And then he was gone. Just like before. Only this time, I knew he'd chosen it. I didn't sleep that night. I walked the city until my feet hurt, my mind replaying everything he'd said over and over. Old memories jostled with new ones. Dad's patterns. The way he'd reacted to the news about Emily. The tightness in his voice whenever Noah's name came up. The way he'd been oddly insistent we move the following year. I saw it all differently now. I went home, sat in the dark of my apartment, staring at nothing. My phone lit up occasionally with notifications I ignored. Around 2 in the morning, I opened an old box I hadn't touched in years. High school photos, ticket stubs, dumb little mementos of a life I'd outgrown. At the bottom, under a layer of notebooks, was a Polaroid. Me and Noah at 12. In my backyard. Dirt on our jeans, grins too big for our faces. Behind us, just barely visible, was the edge of the woods. And further back, blurred but unmistakable, a figure. Tall, broad-shouldered, arms crossed, watching us. I hadn't noticed him there when the photo was taken. I hadn't noticed him there the last dozen times I'd seen this picture. Now, I couldn't see anything else. My father, looking straight at the camera, straight at us, like he was making sure we knew who was really in charge of the story. My hand shook. I don't know how long I sat there, staring at his face. At some point, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. Unknown, you saw it, didn't you? My heart stopped. Unknown, the photo. My fingers hovered over the screen. Unknown, you always were the observant one. I swallowed. Me? Noah? 3 dots appeared. Then, unknown, now you remember. I look back at the photograph, at the blurred figure in the woods, at the two boys in front of him, oblivious to the shadow behind them. And for the first time in 16 years, I let the thought form fully in my mind. My father killed that girl. My father ruined my best friend's life. My father took my memory and bent it until I thought it was my own idea. The next thought followed, quieter but just as sharp. What am I going to do about it? I don't have an answer yet. I haven't gone to the police. I haven't told my mother. I haven't confronted old neighbors or dug up records or hired lawyers. I've gone to work, paid rent, called my sister, gone through the motions of a life built on top of sinkhole. But sometimes, at night, I pull out that photo. I trace the blurred outline in the background. I think about Noah's message. Now you remember. And I wonder, what's worse, the years I spent not knowing, or the rest of my life knowing exactly what kind of man my father was, and knowing that the only person who can decide what happens with that truth now is me.